getting in touch with my real self and getting in touch with a completely other realm, which was absolutely amazing. And it was quite difficult sometimes to come back, especially 9 years old when you're going through that kind of a transition. But I did, when they called for dinner. Or a bear wandered onto the field, because sometimes that would happen, literally. So during that time, I couldn't do anything. I had pneumonia. And so I would visualize the choreography that our choreographer had done for us. And so at the end, we had maybe trained 2 or 3 months of the year, and we ended up winning bronze in the French National Aerobic Championships. Gratitude is one of the highest emotional vibrational frequencies that we can have, just below bliss, which is the highest. So the next aim for me is to have bliss. When I'm working every single day, people go, how do you have that energy? The other day they called me a volcano. And I was laughing because I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. For people, for example, that want to go into an altered state of consciousness and they choose a portal, you need to be very careful which portal you choose, that it resonates completely with you. It would be considered akin to an ayahuasca ceremony or a iboga ceremony, to the extent that it changes your physical and mental and molecular structure in your brain. And it's purely using percussion at the beginning.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Awareness Club podcast. In the episode today, my guest was discovering, since she was a kid, her extrasensorial capacities, and through exercise and being in nature, she was pushing herself towards another side of consciousness, another reality. And from there, step by step, with different practices and tools, she arrived to discover more of herself and doing the same for others. I'm having with me Terri-Lynn McFadyen.
Hi, pleased to meet you.
It is such a pleasure to have you. And when I first heard about you, I entered in contact with the term shaman. So this is very interesting because you are the first shaman in our podcast. So because this was the first attraction, I would ask you, what is a shaman?
First of all, I am a shamanic practitioner and not a shaman.
Okay.
A shaman is someone who has been, let's say, knighted as a shaman through a lineage. And a shaman is someone, in order for someone to have the title of a shaman or the presence of a shaman, they have to live in a different way than we do today. In the true sense of the term, I'm not talking about a new age shaman or anything like that. I'm talking about the true shaman that comes from Siberia, Mongolia, the Bo tradition or the Bon tradition, or South America or North America. So the title of shaman for me, what does that mean? The shaman has to use rituals to get in touch with spirit and trance states, and be able to immediately go into a trance state to be able to work with the spirits. And it's either taunting the spirits, either using spirits as friends, having them help you discover what it is that you need to heal in the other or yourself. But that for me is a true shaman. So I do shamanic practices, but to call myself a shaman would be very pretentious. So sorry to break your bubble.
It's beautiful in its way. It doesn't have to be something. It is just the access and the openness in order to even arrive to participate to this type of rituals.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
Let's make a little bit of a journey until we arrive to this point.
Okay, let's go.
Who was Terri-Lynn at 9 years old?
Terri-Lynn at 9 years old was a girl going through a big transition. I was sent to live with my grandparents and my great-grandmother, and that was quite a shock. And in order to deal with that, I started to use my body and train with the athletic teams in the field beside me. I wasn't old enough to be able to be on those teams. So I would train beside those teams and push myself to a state of exhaustion, probably to deal with the emotional difficulty that I was going through. And when I would finish the training, it took me into another dimension, another state, where I was getting in touch with my real self and getting in touch with a completely other realm, which was absolutely amazing. And it was quite difficult sometimes to come back, especially 9 years old when you're going through that kind of a transition. But I did, when they called for dinner. Or a bear wandered onto the field, because sometimes that would happen, literally.
How would you describe the difference between the real world and that side of consciousness?
Okay, so it depends on what side of the fence we're looking at. So let's look at this side of the fence where we are here and now, you and I, and whatever is around us, that it's very dense, tangible. We can feel ourselves, we can smell, we can taste, we can touch, we can evolve in a physical way. We're in our physical body. So it's we see things, and we can reach out and touch what we see. The other worlds, a lot of what we see we can't necessarily touch. And everything is love. It's an expansive field where you're not constrained by the body and you have the capacity to do anything, and especially to be pure love.
I had here on this chair our other co-founder, which is Anna, which is also an extrasensorial person, but she's seeing also a negative side of the invisible, which we can be entities, which can be people that were trapped or remained in this field and so on. So what are the differences?
That's definitely a part of it. I think for me, it depends on how I get there. If I get there on my own, like for example, through physical activity or a guided breath work that I'm doing by myself, and my intent is very clear, I will go in there and find the pure love and expansion and awareness. If I find myself catapulted in there for a reason that's maybe not necessarily of pure intent, then definitely there are other nuances that are darker, let's say darker. But I think with all the experience that I've had, I prepare myself very well before now going in there, unless it's spontaneous, which sometimes I can't. And in that case, you take what comes. So there is definitely nuances from pure love and expansion into denser, darker forms. Let's just say it that way. Yeah, for sure.
When you are in one of those, you can shift.
Yeah.
You can change it by will.
Yep, for sure. Yep. And you have to learn that before going there. That's why I'm saying, when it's a controlled thing, when it's a controlled, let's say, experiment, because it's all an adventure, when it's that way, you can shift your perception. When you're catapulted in there and taken by shock, a lot of the times the shock can lead to fragmentation, and it's a lot harder to pull yourself back together into the pure life, into pure light, light and love. But it's possible. You really have to be a practitioner to be able to pull yourself out of that spiral. Because what happens is, if you're in that dark part and you're in another consciousness, you come back into this life here that we were explaining earlier. You come back with that or without that fragment. And so it continues. We were talking earlier about an experience that you had, and that's exactly what it is. You come back and there's things that come back with you. Yeah. So if you don't want things to come back with you, you need to be very careful with your intention, but also For people, for example, that want to go into an altered state of consciousness and they choose a portal, you need to be very careful which portal you choose, that it resonates completely with you, so that when you go into your state, whatever you want to call it, samadhi, non-dual union, other dimension, that you do go in there with the purest of intent in yourself, but also the person that's accompanying you has the purest of intent as well.
Overall, every person can access altered states of consciousness. Now, the question is how were you experiencing since you were a kid, and what was this exploration for you? Because most of times when we are kids, everything is possible. The world doesn't represent any limit for us. So where were you going, and how was this exploration becoming something usual for you, and how did it expanded?
My practice was using my body. So my practice at the beginning, at that, I didn't know anything about meditation. I didn't know anything about breath work. I knew that if I would work out to a certain extent, that my body would let go, and through the body and the breath, because I was working out so hard, that would allow me to go into that state. And there, everything is clear. There, you could say you meet God. You meet God, you meet good, you meet love, you meet light. Because my intentions at that point, when you're a kid, you don't really have bad intentions. Like, I'm not going to work myself out till I drop. And because that person said something bad to me, and, no, it wasn't that.
Further, it was a devotion towards your body, because you became a professional in fitness, no?
Yeah, for sure. I did. I was. I am.
And in different type of sports, actually.
Yep.
In spinning, in aerobics.
Yes. Yes. I started teaching fitness. That was the first thing I started doing. And I started doing that because I was watching people doing fitness and going, that's not how you do it, you guys. So my ego was such a big thing at that point. And so I started to do that. And from there, my career just flew. I went from being a fitness instructor. When I came to France, the fitness world was very, very small. And I was scouted, let's say, by Nike France, and became an athlete for them. And then from there, the spinning world opened up, because the creator of the indoor cycling movement, Johnny G, asked me to become a master spinning instructor. And so I became one of 9 international master spinning instructors for 10 years. And it goes on and on. I became an aerobic champion, and after I became a yoga ambassador for Reebok, and it just goes on and on and on. So yeah, my body I used this amazing vehicle, which is absolutely incredible, to help me get into another dimension. And I used to the point where it became so proficient that all those big marks, those big brand names came and said, could you please represent us? And yeah, for sure, let's do it.
So while your presence and your activity was shifting from one sport to the other, and you were reaching the peaks of it, what was your internal world evolving?
I would say, you don't have the champion of France of meditation, right? So I would say that the more my career evolved, the more I would go into the esoterical side of it. But I wouldn't speak of that because it was in such a tangible and dense world, that was my private, that was like my private garden, if you will. And everyone knew that, where's Terri-Lynn? She's meditating. They knew, but I wouldn't talk about it because nobody understood what I was doing. But I would go in between meetings at Nike, or in between doing master classes for 500 people. I would go seclude myself and go into another state. Because it was also, like, if we want to talk about neuroscience, it was also nervous system regulation. Like, I I had to find a balance between pushing the body 100% and sometimes even more into a state where I was a normal human being. And so these techniques at the beginning were helping me balance my nervous system. I was hyperactive, hypersensitive. And that was the only way that I could, and anywhere I was, get back to a state of balance. So yeah, I would say that my spiritual world was evolving at the same time, and maybe not at the same height, because at some point the ego takes over. I mean, yeah, you're standing there in front of 500 people that came for you or more. Like sometimes it was more. We had rock star speakers, and your ego takes it over. So at that point, I'd say my spiritual journey was a little bit less important until I started getting some knocks. And then the humility brought me back into, like, who do you think you are? Who do you think you go to bed like other people, you wake up like other people. You need to get back to a practice that balances out the physical body. So yeah, I think I started seriously delving into the spiritual a portal, like a meditative portal, when I was with Nike. Because that's when I started to be on stage quite a bit. And a friend of mine gave me this meditation, a guided meditation that I talked to you about earlier. And this guided meditation just catapulted me back into that amazing expansion. And with the expansion, thanks to that expansion, my career also expanded. And who I was as a person, above and beyond like the career, the importance of doing, the importance of being became very prevalent in who I was.
We were also speaking about visualization and about the impact of training the brain outside of physical training.
So I was training for the French National Aerobic Championships in the 90s, and I got really sick. I was living in an apartment in Paris, and it had lots of mold in it. So as I was training, I started getting sick, and I became ill with pneumonia. So obviously I couldn't train physically. And every time I would go back to train again physically, when I would be cured from in a year period, because we had a year training before we actually did the competition. And in that year, I would go back to training, and then I would get sick again with pneumonia or bronchitis or one or the other for approximately 6 months of the 11-month training. So during that time, I couldn't do anything. I had pneumonia. And so I would visualize the choreography that our choreographer had done for us. And during the visualization, I would go through each step. I would do the whole thing, the whole choreography, and then I would go step by step. What am I doing here? What am I doing here? What is my facial expression? What is my expression towards my partner? Because I was in couples, and how am I going to relate to my partner here? How am I going to do a one-arm push-up and a one-leg push-up at this point? How am I going to jump up and do, this move where you have to jump up, a split open, and then land in a push-up? It's called a Shushanova. How am I going to do my Shushanova? I'm going to jump, open, wide, grab it, come down, land softly, and then go up again. And so each step of my choreography, I visualized over and over again. And what was amazing is that I noticed that there was holes in the choreography, like these little spots where it felt empty. So I would fill it up with little movements and then go back and we'd train again with my partner. And I'd say, here we're going to do this, and here we're going to do that, and here we're going to, and he'd go, oh yeah, let's do that. And so at the end, we had maybe trained 2 or 3 months of the year. And we ended up winning bronze in the French National Aerobic Championships. So that's how the visualization for me helped me, overcome the physical aspect, because I couldn't do anything. Yeah. So visualization for me, it's, and like you were saying earlier, they're now telling us, this is what you said earlier, that they're using that, the tennis people are using that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Swimming and other professional athletes, they're using it in their training. Yeah.
And it was interesting because during the International Master Spinning Instructor training camps that we had with our 9 original master instructors, Johnny G, was a fierce giver of visualization during spinning. And I use that in my spinning classes to enable people to go a step above their cardiovascular activity. And what was amazing at that point, we were already talking about heart rate variability at that point, because we were all sponsored by Polar, Polar, the heart rate monitors. So we were trying to experiment with visualization and see how that affected heart rate variability. And that was in the 90s. So now that's like a key word, right? Heart rate. And we were just playing around with it at that point through visualization. So just to tell you that that's just such an amazing modality to help you get through difficulties in your life. Visualize them beforehand. What is preventing you from doing that?
Yeah, you are such an interesting guest because there are so many topics that I want to touch with you. And there are so many things that you are practicing during your life and experiencing on your own into feeling them, embodying them, and then being able to offer it to others. And
Thank you.
I will just go through what comes to my mind.
Great.
And because we were discussing now about visualization, let's speak about sophrology. What is it?
Sophrology is a science, so it's more on I would say more on the intellectual or mental side of the healing modalities. Sophrology is using breath, imagery, and movement all together in one to help people get through traumas in their lives, or not even necessarily traumas. It could be just a child that is, or a teenager that's going to do their high school graduation, and they're afraid of going through the graduation process, the tests, etc., helping them deal with their stress levels. It could be any type of situation that we help people get through by using just visualization, breath, and physical movement. So it takes people into a state of almost hypnosis. We're not quite at that level. We're just at the threshold of hypnosis, and that's where we plant the seeds of positivity into their minds. So it's almost a well, it is actually, we reprogram their brain.
What I heard first about it is that it is for people that cannot meditate. If you cannot meditate, try sophrology.
Yes, it is a portal. It's another portal for sure. Yeah, because you have someone guiding you, and we use, for example, if I knew about your life, which I would do in a first session, I would take an amnesis, and I would ask you all of your positive experience in life. What's your favorite food? Where's your favorite places? And tell me about them. Tell me about the colors, the textures, the fragrances. Tell me all about that. And so while we're doing you see what I'm going through? So while we're doing the exercises in a deeper level, I would bring you back to your own experiences so you could embellish your future life with your own positive experiences.
Because it's relatable.
Yeah, it's relatable, and it's the way that you get into meditation without having it become like this hard thing to do. I got to go meditate. But everyone says when you go meditate, you have to not do anything. Well, that's just the byproduct of getting there. And in sophrology, near the end of the session, when you go into that part where I'm speaking about, people automatically are still, their nervous system is calmed down, their heart rate is down, they're in rest, digest, feed, breathe, they're there. So then they realize, okay, this is the state of being able to get into meditation. I'm going to go more often to Terri-Lynn. I'm going to do sophrology more often.
How would you describe the difference between yoga and sophrology? Because yoga is using also a sort of postures and a sort of physical thing, and also a sort of, even for you, imagining like the posture that you will and the sequence if you want and so on. And also it's a portal towards the meditative state, no?
Totally, yeah. Yoga is such an amazing modality to get there as well, by using postures, breath, Some yoga teachers use visualization. I definitely do because I studied Tantra yoga. And so we use breath with a visual, like a visual trajectory in each position. So you're completely locked in the position using visualization and breath with the posture and connecting with the elements. The difference between yoga and sophrology is yoga, it's a series of postures that you're going to use to attain a certain state of being. Sophrology, it's not necessarily postures, it's more like actions that are pertaining to the individual. And we're using guided visualization that's pertinent to the individual, whereas in yoga, I mean, you're not necessarily going to go that psychologically deep with the yoga practitioner. You're going to use the postures with the breath, and that's the portal in itself that the person can go through and experience their own experience without you guiding them so much in the other dimension. Sophrology is such a deeper state of the mind. You need to give people like their comfort, like their little teddy bear, their comfort, which is their experiences, their own smells that they love, their own images that they love. So that's probably the biggest difference for me in my yogic studies and for me in my sophrology practice. That's the main difference for me.
Would you see in people to direct them more towards yoga or more towards sophrology depending on their energy, or how do you feel them?
Well, I mean, when you talk with somebody and you start to get to know them, you understand that they're physical, they're not physical, they're more attracted to visualization or they're more attracted to working out their body. It really just depends on the individual. So if someone comes to me and they can't sit still, I'm going to give them a practice where they're going to be able to physically move their body. So I would suggest maybe Pilates or yoga. So that they can calm their nervous system through physical activity and get that excessive nervousness out of the body. But if someone comes and they're just like, I don't like sports and, I don't want to move my body. My mind is just in chaos. I would give them some breath work. I would help them get through that by using imagery and maybe give them some soft breath work to allow them to dissipate the knots that are the chaos that's in their mind and calm the mind. So yeah, I think that would be the diagnostic. It's very individual.
And the Pilates?
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about it, because whenever I was hearing about it, it's about the girls that are doing stretching in a way that is called Pilates.
Okay.
But behind it, how do you use it?
Okay. So you can use it in a number of ways. If we use it in its classical term, it's used as a system, meaning that we'll see the body in front of us and the person, depending on what the person is coming for as well, okay? But we will see the body in front of us and know what to do. There's a process where we'll have them do, for example, mat work, which is exercises, a certain number of exercises in a certain order, and we see how their body works, and then we'll take them to the machines and use different machines to help them correct these parts of their body. Okay? And then it depends on where you go with it, because I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to take them into a definite breath work that goes with that. And at the end, in a Pilates session, usually like a classical, I'm talking purely classical, you end up standing up, you're ready to go out in the world. I would have them lay down and do a breathwork session with them and redo their whole session and see how they feel about it, so that the next session I can guide them better. So Pilates, if we come back to like a global term, stretching, well, one of the most famous women that was a protege of Joseph Pilates would say, Pilates is stretching with grace and strength. So in essence, you've got 1/3 of the solution down, but it's also with strength and grace. Yeah, so it works the body in aligning it, kind of like a Iyengar yoga, by great alignment, but also using the breath to do movement.
Now, let's go to other practices because we have a full list of things. What is, we never spoke in this show about Reiki.
So, Reiki is a discipline or a healing modality coming from way back. Japanese guy. I always forget his name because it doesn't seem important because he's visualized in my head. Brought down this tradition from, it's a lineage actually. We were talking about lineage earlier. This healing modality where you use a channeling from the global energy of the universe and it comes through you through your hands. And in Reiki, the specificity of Reiki is you use symbols that were geometrically brought down from sound and vibration, and you use that to heal with your hands. So there's a certain placement of hands in certain protocols, and the Reiki in itself is an energy, how I feel it. It's an energy coming from pure source, coming through me, channeling through me, and channeling through my heart, and in through my hands and into the person. And wherever the energy needs to go, my hands will go there. And when I say energy, Reiki is people akin it to having an internal shower. It's like when they finish their session, they're in a deep state of trance, which we have to bring them out, obviously. But when they come out, they feel as though they've been expanded into, like I was talking earlier, into a universal state of love and consciousness where sometimes they meet their guides or their ancestors or transgenerational problems. And then they come back into this dense form and they are very uncomfortable because they feel as they're coming in that they're constricted in the human body. And so there's a real art to bringing them back in. So they come into their body and they love their body and they love being incarnated into this life. That's how into this life here and now in this density of this body. That's my take on Reiki as a double Reiki master. I did the Reiki Yushui and also Shakti Reiki. So the difference is one is based on, like I said, bringing in universal consciousness from above, and the other is bringing the power of the fierceness of Mother Earth and the Shakti. So the energy and the fire of Shakti and bringing it up through the earth into your heart and out through your hands. So it's it's a double. There's many different types of Reiki. Those are the two that I'm a master in.
And do you still use it?
Yes and no. You know, it's as our practices evolve, we take things. That's why I said, you know, that I think it's Maître Yushui is his name. I use the parts that resonate with me. I use the fire that resonates me. I use the purity that resonates with me without necessarily going through all of the symbols. Because in Reiki, there are symbols that, you know, and they're intentions. Okay. And my intention is always very pure. It's to heal. It's very pure. And sometimes it's to give fire. And so then it's fire. But my intention is not what the symbols necessarily dictate. So yeah, it evolves. The symbols, I rarely use all the symbols unless one will come out to me and I'll say, yes, we need to give this person fire and energy. And then, yes, give them the symbol. So definitely it evolves. All of our practices evolve. And the more we do them, the more we experience them, the more we embody it so that it really resonates with us. And that's how people come to know us, because they resonate with that, not with a technique per se.
Yeah. As Christian was saying, Christian Pisano that was on the podcast was saying that technique is technique and you need it if you use it If you don't use it, you don't need a technique. And afterwards, you need to deconstruct what you have learned in order to create your own language.
That's exactly the process I'm explaining. Yeah, that's exactly it. I love the structure of what you say, but I'm more of because my training in Pilates is so like alignment. No, don't. I'm more into like the feeling of the whole thing. But I love hearing you say that because because it puts it into a nice little structure that people can understand. When you're talking about resonance, a lot of people just go, yeah, whatever. Well, I don't know what she's talking about. But I think most of your audience would be people that are on the awareness path. So they may resonate a lot with what I'm saying.
And also, what you are doing, you are combining very different practices. Like, for example, from Reiki, we go to a very psychological one, which is EFT. So, emotional freedom technique uses, and it's very technical, and it uses the energetic meridians
Yeah.
of the body, and then tapping, and then neural linguistic programming,
Yeah.
and so on. So it's very interesting that in different moments in times we discover different tools that are helping us unlocking a different part of us that makes us a little bit whole, and then we discover another crack or another opportunity into another practice or another curiosity.
Right? It's so true because there are times where when someone will come back into their body and I will use tapping to help them physically come back into their body. I won't use the necessarily a like very ethereal phrase, but I am back in my body, tap, tap, tap. I am back in my body. I'm back in my body, tap, tap, tap. I am back in my body. I'm back in my body. I'm back in my body. And then, and that's what's going to help them bring back. Because some people they can't come back. They're just like, this is such an amazing place that I've been. I don't want to come back here. It's too dense. Sorry, honey, you're here. You're here and it's now and you have to come back. So let's do this, okay? Because that's what we came here for. We fought to come here and now we want to go somewhere else. No, we'll get there.
We will be there afterwards.
No worries. There's two truths in life. One we are born and one we die.
Alongside with all these practices, let's speak a little bit about sound, because sound is vibration. And I want to hear from you how you discovered sound and how are you still using it?
Well, how do teenagers discover sound? It's through music. And when I heard music and I started dancing to that, I just was this is another portal, literally into this amazing world. Yeah, because I also danced. And when I was dancing, I was transported into another world. And I think it was the bass, like the vibration of the bass that got into my cells and started vibrating my cells. And I was like, there's something to this. And then when I was going with Nike and I was starting meditation, I was reading about Masaru Emoto and how vibration changes the water and our body is made out of water. And I was fascinated at that point by that before it was like à la mode. And I started and I was using music on my whole career. I was a fitness instructor. And so I was using music. And at that point, we didn't have Spotify. We didn't have Deezer. We didn't have all that. I would go to Universal Music and spend the whole day there trying to find music that would go with my classes. And so I discovered world music. I discovered African music. I discovered different types of music. And from there, obviously, when you hear a certain drum, and I need that drum. Because that's that drum that's bringing me into another world.
And the rhythmic repetition of the sounds is present no matter if we're speaking about the Christian Orthodox Church, or if we're speaking about the tribal sounds, or if we're speaking about rituals inside the deep Amazonian jungle. It's always a rhythm that puts the brain into flow. in order to be able to
Entrainment.
yes.
Entrainment. That's exactly it. And in certain cultures, like there's a culture in Morocco, they do, I think it's called Nugawa. And so they use percussion and sounds and then dance crescendo to bring people into a trance level state. And it's considered it would be considered akin to an ayahuasca ceremony or a iboga ceremony, to the extent that it changes your physical and mental and molecular structure in your brain. And it's purely using percussion at the beginning to bring you into entrainment. Yeah, it's amazing. So sound, yeah, for me, the sound is another portal. So for someone who would come in, like we were talking about earlier, how would you discern what modality to use? In 99% of the cases, I'll use sound therapy. I will use the tuning forks at the beginning immediately, because I bring them into entrainment, the tuning forks bring them into a different state immediately. I don't have to do anything. They start to vibrate with the tuning forks. So sound therapy is one of the modalities that is underrated, so underrated for me. Don't have to do anything. You can start beating a drum, and you don't have to beat a drum strong. It can be very soft with a small heartbeat. And every time you see the person calming, I see their energy coming in, and here they come into entrainment, and all of a sudden, now we can get somewhere. Now we can start to work together. And then I know which modality to choose, because I see them on a soul level.
What do you see on a soul level?
The light, the love, what that human being's been through. Sometimes it's a blessing and sometimes it's not. But I sincerely will see sometimes the pain, sometimes the sorrow, sometimes the love, sometimes the lack of trust.
When somebody is holding the space, it happens that it can be so empathic that it's also taking or experiencing the same emotions as the person that is holding, being it pain, being it grief, being it whatever emotions through which maybe that person cannot release it or cannot bring it out to the surface, and the holder is taking it out through its crying, through its pain and so on. So it can go up to that level. But just to step a little bit into your world, how do you experience while being with a person? How do you see when you transcend? What is your world? Try to describe us your world.
What I see is people coming in from the chaos of outside and the programming and the chaos in the human being. So I will see the human being in front of me with an aura that's maybe murky, and I can see that their heart rate is beating. I can see that their eyes are turning around and they're nervous. Their whole state of being is like vibrating, but not on a calm and balanced level. It's almost like nervous energy. Yes. And so my world is keeping my calm, being completely aware of that, but that is not my stuff. And I have to prepare myself before, I have to prepare the space before, just like, so the person comes into a safe space. And even that in my world is a whole creation in itself.
Can we do a small parenthesis?
Yeah?
Of how do you prepare your environment?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Because this can help people to be inspired and do a small ritual for their houses.
Definitely. Creating a safe space. First thing I will do is close the door and the windows. Yeah, because you want to create a contained safe space. You can open it up after, no problem, but close the doors, close maybe the curtains, create a light that is convenable to your own eyes and to your own space. Then once I'm in the space, I will put a fragrance in. Fragrance is one of the first things for me that's going to bring, okay, that means that it's time to bring my heart rate down. once the fragrance is created, it can be a candle or incense or Palo Santos or whatever it is, but a fragrance, preferably something non-chemical. And then once that space is created, I'm going to just sit there and I will bring myself into resonance with myself. So meaning I will come into my heart, to place my hands on my heart, and I will just come in and feel my heart rate. So cardiac coherence, let's say. From there, I allow my cardiac coherence to expand into light and start filling the room with that light. So all of the walls, the ceiling, the floor will be bathed in that light and love and calmness.
In this point, we are with eyes closed or eyes open?
I can do it either way. I think for the majority of people, maybe eyes closed would be easier for them, just so they don't have any external distractions. Close your eyes. And then whatever it is you have to prepare. So then I will set up my table, I will set up my stuff, and everything that comes out everything that I'm going to be using is blessed.
What means to bless, and how do you bless?
Exactly. So let's take an example of, you're going to put a glass of a carafe of water out for your client.
Yes, we have the water
like
here.
this and this. So I would put it out and take it and say thank you to the water. I would say a mantra several times to bless the water. And then the container of the water, bless the hands that enabled the water to stay in this container. Bless the cups and the hands that came into making this, and the material. Where did the material come from? The earth. Bless the earth. It would just be everything, like you were saying earlier, it would be taking a certain element and going deeper and deeper into that element and blessing it. It takes seconds to do, but then everything is blessed. So my table, my instruments that I'm so grateful for, the plant in the room that's going to get water from the bowl when I turn it, and the water will be blessed, and then it goes into the plant. So everything is blessed, so I create this sacred space.
This is a sort also of putting yourself in a posture of gratitude on one side, which is highly important. And on the other side, I think it's create peace. Because when you are grateful and you're doing a ritual, you're calming yourself into being one with the things that you're blessing. So that produces a state of peace by itself. And overall, it's like when we are looking at films like Avatar, when we are saying, oh, that's so beautiful, and their connection with nature, and how and that feeling of the environment and being one with the trees and with the water, and that respects between themselves and so on. But that is a personification of exactly what you are describing now. That is just a cinematic way of saying the same thing. And people are in love with that, but they will forget to do one in their home.
For sure. I mean, it's not a part of our daily
education.
I don't even want to say education, but our rituals, our being. Like our being is so sacred that when you wake up in the morning, the first thing that I don't want to say should, but the first thing I do, okay, I'm just going to use myself as the light that shines. The first thing I do is say thank you. Like, thank you for allowing me to wake up today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to my surroundings. Thank you to when I open my windows and I hear the birds. So people wake up and they got their alarm and they're on their, how Joe Dispenza will always say, you go onto your email and you check your email, and then you check your Facebook and your Instagram and your TikTok, and when you wake up, the first thing is just like, thank you. I'm awake. I'm alive. I have another day on this earth. And creating space is being in that state of gratitude. For me, being in that state of gratitude. Gratitude is one of the highest emotional vibrational frequencies that we can have, just below bliss, which is the highest. So the next aim for me is to have bliss. when I'm working every single day, people go, how do you have that energy? The other day they called me a volcano. And I was laughing because I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. But because I'm so in the moment and in gratitude for what I do, that it shows in my space, even if it's not my space at home, it will be my space of work, at this work, or at this work, or when I'm walking down the street. It's a constant state of being. And the average Joe, let's say, do they do that in the morning?
And this is exactly what I was saying about education. It's not necessarily the education in our school, but it's the education that became as a standard and the only thing that we are using because of the industrial age. If we are looking 2000 years ago, we are looking to a more ritual communities
Yes.
in which we're having the elderly taking care of the children. I was even saying this in the last episode, when the whole community was praying, when a couple wanted to have a kid, and it's all this interlinked that is more toward the structure of ourselves. But when you take the notion of education, you have that at school, you feel that is nothing else to create at home. Of course, you're putting your kids in place, you don't need to break that, you don't need to do that, but it's not that exactly this community of thinking in detail about this material and about the water inside and about the energy, how I'm blessing the water. And I also heard about this discussion of some pragmatic people that were saying, I don't care if I bless this water or not. For me, it's just water and I drink it and it will make the job for me. And then the other question was, okay, so if I will swear with the baddest words that I know this water, will you drink it? And it said no.
No.
So
No, for sure.
then vice versa, it's also available. So
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. And the story about education, I completely agree with you. My children, I have I have two boys, and my children, I brought them up to have awakened senses from birth. So, and they're extremely successful, my sons, because they had an education in the schools, but also an education with a mother that's, well, the way this is, let's bless this water. Let's bless this. Let's be grateful for this. Let's open ourselves up to other things. And their capacity to do that has brought them really far professionally in life. So we can counterbalance the industrial age education that's still being done. I mean, when you look at education, it hasn't changed in how long? They're still making kids sit in school. I mean, how can you learn when you're just sitting there and all day? And then you go to lunch and you sit, and then you go for recess and you're in a courtyard where there's no trees and there's no yard. Yeah.
to reproduce the same poems from the book and to learn word by word. And we arrive in a society when you have all the knowledge in your pocket from your phone using AI.
Oh, where are we going? Let's come back to gratitude and bliss. I much prefer that vibration. That resonates much more with me than.
Until we go forward, I would like still, because you're speaking about your kids, I would like to know, how did you planted the seeds in your children? What tools did you give them? And what, from your process, let's inspire others how to make even the bond with their kids a bit better.
Okay. Well, it started when they were born, because I was in a foreign country, so I was speaking in my native tongue, which is English, but they were born here in France. So that differentiated them immediately from others, and so that was something they had to deal with. Is that they were different, and instead of being the same as everybody else and falling into the program of I am the same as everybody else, I am going to be the robot taking métro, boulot, dodo. You know what I mean? So that was the first thing. And then the second thing I would do with my children is every time we would, for example, sit down to eat, we would have a meal that I had made the meal with love. I didn't make the meal rushing. I would make the meal with love. And I would bless the food. They wouldn't necessarily bless the food, but they knew there was a difference in that. Awakening their senses by, as babies, putting them in the water, or growing up, as long as I could hold them, placing their ears under the water, and just their ears, and have them say, listen, feel, as they moved around in the water. So to try and help them develop their other senses than the intellectual side of them. What do you smell? First, how do you smell flowers? And children, when they go to smell flowers, it's so funny. They don't breathe in, they breathe out. I don't know if you did that, but both my kids did that. I'd say, smell the flowers, and they would breathe out. They'd go close to the flower and they'd breathe out. And I'd say, okay, so we have to breathe in. And they would go, they'd breathe out. So you have to teach them how to breathe by breathing with flowers, and the color and the texture of the flowers, like, feel it. So it was waking up their senses. I think that was the major difference. Yeah.
There were some rituals that you are doing, like before bed or waking up.
I don't know if most parents do that, but reading them stories or making up stories with them. You make up stories with certain characters according to how their day went. So if their day went really bad, there would be a certain character that would come and be like a big teddy bear that would come and give them hugs and, and just be there for them. So we would make stories up, or I would sing to them. Yeah, those are I think those
And
are just
activities? Did you do some interesting activities with them to enhance their...
The majority of the time, they both were different because both have different needs. One was very social and the other one was a little bit less social, so it was different for each one of them. I would say the ritual for the one that's quieter, we would go into nature all the time. We would go and be by the creek. We would go hiking, and so it would be a ritual for him to go out there and feel how nature can change his state of being. And the other one was more social, so we had to do social things. But specific rituals, not really. No, I mean, it was just like being a loving, not just loving in a perfunctory way, being loving from your heart, emanating that love towards them, allowing them to feel that you are completely present with them.
It feels, now that we are speaking, I feel more and more in your aura a motherly presence. And I think this is happening also for the people that are joining your classes or are coming for different type of treatments.
Yeah.
Now it also appears in the light in your eyes.
Wow.
Speaking about that, let's have a differentiation of what is a healer and what is the healing process.
Well, the process is the steps you take to heal. And a healer is someone who's going to help you go through those steps. I mean, if we take it at a more basic level, the healing process depends on where you start, right? So where are you starting from? Where do we start from? Let's start from somebody who's completely traumatized.
Yeah.
The healing process, unfreeze. Try and get them out of a state of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, using softness and techniques of softness. That's maybe where the motherly comes out, is because how can you treat frozen with frozen? How do you thaw something out? So the healing process would be to slowly take them through a thawing process. And then it depends on which each person reacts to different modalities. For some, a tuning fork is going to be too aggressive. So a soft breath work would be their portal to go through there. And then their process would start by relaxing. That's the first thing to undo the knots. And the healer is the one that needs to know how to go through there, help them go through, and which process to choose. I think when you're a healer, a lot of the times, at least in my case, I have gone through so much healing myself that I can draw a lot from experience. And
you relate very easily to their stories.
Yeah. And healer is a big word, like it's a buzzword. So I don't even know if I would say healer, at least on my behalf. I would say therapist, because I'm using different tools to help people go through a healing process. But do they heal? Do we ever heal completely?
And do we need to be healed?
If we do, we will never come back again in another life to experience it, right?
You are always a vessel for awareness. With alignment, without alignment, you are always are. Because this is existence itself. You cannot not exist if you exist. So that is the one thing. That is the only thing that we can certify. And the first moment of cognition, when you realize that I am, that is the only thing that it's overpassing the limitations of the brain and our senses.
Yes.
Because we are producing the media that of this life, wherever the vision, the sensorials and so on are through our senses. But if you take, and those are limited, we cannot see infrared, we cannot feel more than 100 degrees, we will burn and so on. So outside of these limitations, there is only one thing and one moment before all that, which is the first cognition. And after that, everything started to create this limited reality that we are perceiving.
Yeah.
And also this brings me to you, which you are a specialist of feeling the body and following the body and understanding what it needs to show us.
Yes. Yes, I am. I guess I can say that with all humility involved. Yes.
Describe me a little bit your process, your individual process of how the body teached you where to go and what to approach next.
The body is the portal to get into another world, because we're here and now. Feel the body. What does that mean? For me, the first thing for me is come into your body by feeling your heart. If you can't come in and feel your heart beating, for me, you're not yet in your body completely. Okay? So if you want to start on a really basic level, feel your feet on the floor. Open your toes, feel your feet on the floor. Then you start being in your body. Feel your feet, feel your ankles, feel what you're sitting on, feel your belly, feel your, you know what I mean? Use your hands, find your body, feel your body. But I was talking on a deeper level. When you go inside, is to go inside, you can use the breath to go inside and feel your heart beating. And from there, everything opens up. And so, like, for example, this morning I was doing a meditation. And in the meditation, I was going through the different parts of my body, and it was very contracted up here because I was just going slowly with breath, going through each part of the body, relaxing, 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 coming up with the breath, coming into the brain and finding it was very contracted. So just stay there, breathe, maybe listen to water sounds, which is the fluidity. Like in shamanism, we use the water to calm emotions, or water is my element for calming emotions and grounding and coming into the body. And yeah, so that went away very quickly because of the going into my body, but using each part of my body with breath.
It's a scan.
Like a scan, yeah. But go deeper. Because once you do your scan coming up and then you go back into your heart, you can go from your scan from the inside and start to know what's happening with your organs, what's happening with your bones, what's happening, is there something out of order, and you become to know your body and to know before something maybe physically handicapping will start, because you start to feel inside your body. Okay, this is what's happening. Okay, this is off. Okay, what's up with that? Maybe I was just, oh yeah, that's fine. And then if it stays, then you know that you have to go consult a doctor or, use a breathwork practice and see if you can dissipate that. Like what I'm talking about at the level I'm talking about interoception is something after years of practicing, just a regular body scan. Okay, here's your toes. Do you feel your toes? Can you open your toes right now? Can you anchor them down? Yeah. Can you feel the bottom of your foot on the rug? What does it feel like on the rug? Okay. And then come up from your ankle. Your foot's attached by your ankle. Can you feel your ankle? Do you know where your ankle is? Because it's funny because when I had a yoga center in Zimie for years, and one time I was saying to this lady, lower your shoulder blades down into the back pocket of your pants. It's one of the things we say to get your shoulders down, right? And I could see she was struggling with that. And I went to her and I said, do you know where your shoulder blades are? And she's like, in French. And she said, no. I was like, oh, okay. Okay, here's your shoulder blades. You see my hands? Those are your shoulder blades. Lift and lower. You see how this lift and lower? So sometimes you have to show people. That's why I said your ankle. You know your ankle. Your foot is attached by your ankle to your... Because some people are like, no, they're not in their bodies. We're talking about something earlier. Yes, you were saying how you can meditate. You can sit down in lotus and start to meditate without doing any physical activity. And I looked and I said, then you're just an alien. I didn't say it, but that's kind of that. Because 99, well, maybe not 99%, but maybe 90% of people cannot do that. They need a physical activity to exhaust the nervous energy, to be able to even perceive that there's something more. Whereas you just sit down in lotus, and lotus for them, next life. It's not going to be in this life because physically their body can't do it.
To be honest, I didn't even know that you can do it in another way. I just knew I just heard about meditation. I knew it for a long time, but I was not practicing.
Yeah.
And one day I said, now I will practice, and I think I know where I need to go.
Very good.
And then for me, it was that other option. It was not like I need to finish my energy or I need to deploy something. I was going with a purpose, and I found it.
That is amazing. But when we were having that discussion, I was thinking, but what about the person who's in a wheelchair that can't get into lotus position, but that needs the meditation to be able to cope with the society that doesn't accept handicapped people, especially here where we are. I was privileged to grow up in Canada in one of the cities that was the most handicapped accessible towns in the whole country. So I was exposed to that type of challenge from the time that I moved there, which was around 9 years old, where this whole story started, right? So yeah, it's difficult for the majority of people to just sit and go into meditative states. They need something to instigate the jettison into that state, and most often it is by the physical body.
And I was having a person that was doing energy work, and I was telling that, look, I'm doing my lotus position because I was very into arriving into the lotus position, because I was feeling that is a sort of stability and the sort of elegance in which the body can relax. You can, and then she was saying, yes, but you didn't arrive there. You need to stay like on the chair. You're putting your feet down, and you will feel also the energy going through your feet and then going out through your chakras. Now put yourself into lotus. Do you feel that you are able to attract the energy through your first chakra and then going to your body? No, I can't. Then put your feet down.
Yes, exactly. It is. The feet have so many proprioception endings, nervous endings, that it is a great portal to start feeling the energy rising.
To do the grounding process itself.
Exactly. And the lotus position, what you were explaining about, the lotus position is an amazing position if you can get into it and stay into it, because your whole root chakra system can open and root down, literally, like you see a big tree, and root down as deep as you want to go, and go even to the center, the core of our amazing Mother Earth, and gather the Shakti of the volcanic energy in the center of the earth, the molten iron burning.
Oh my God, I love how you talk about these things. It's so much fashion.
Well, it's like when you feel it, and you get in.
You're living it, I see.
Yeah, and you get into that environment and you want to share it. It's like, thank you for allowing me to share this, because it is true. That's when you have that. When you're in that state, that's exactly what it is. It's like when you're in water, how do you feel? When you're in water and you become one with water, you are just a wave in the whole, not even a wave, you are a part of the water. And your emotions, it's not that they flatline, your emotions are just filled and expanded and magnified. And according to the temperature of the water or how the water is running, your body's going to, and your mind and your intellect and everything, all of your bodies will start to resonate. Because just think about it. When you're in one river, we'll have 15 different discussions. The water will speak to you in 15 or 16 different ways in one river. Like, how intense is that? So if you're in lotus position and you can open your heart out to feel what I'm feeling, go in lotus, dude. I'll keep my feet on the, I'll keep my feet here and root down. But yeah, use the, I think people, you know, when we were blessing, part of the ceremony is the water. When we bless the water has so many different nuances, so many different languages in it as well. Which are you interpreting? Are you capable of interpreting that?
Now, passing through all these topics, let's get back to shamanism.
Okay.
Because I think we were creating a little bit of structure about your life, about different practices. And this is one of the special ones. Because first of all, it's so old. It's pre-religion. Second of all, it's using the connection with nature. And third of all, it's creating the connection with other entities. And here, other entities, it's important to mention that can be entities that belongs to nature. There are entities that can be humans that are not alive anymore. I know that, for example, my shaman in the Amazonian jungle was saying how he connects with other past shamans that were in the communities and in the tribes, and he invokes them in his practices as part of the lineage, if you want. And there are also entities that belong to different plants, and this is also a bridge because different plants are creating different states of consciousness inside human beings. So those type of entities are different from the ones, for example, that are governing the nature itself.
Exactly.
So because all this fruitful place, I want to know a little bit, how did you arrived into shamanism, and a little bit about how did you feel the energy and the practices, and what brought to your soul?
Well, my best friend in Canada from birth was, how can I say, she was entrained in that, and she was my best friend forever. And I would see from afar how she was evolving. And eventually I started to say, you know something, I've got to expand in a different way. And I'm not really sure. I've done a lot of stuff, but I'm not really sure how to guide myself into having a bigger relationship with what I see in the other worlds, like a relationship, not just being not a sporadic visitor and seeing things, but having a relationship with what I was seeing in other worlds, and have a better relationship with nature. That was kind of the calling card.
At what age was this happening?
Well, I mean, I evolved with her since I was 17. And the rest just sort of came little by little. I really started to go deeper when I came down into the south of France, which about 16 years ago, because I had a couple of dark nights of the soul, and like literally, and had to make my way back. And I didn't want to use psychotherapy or, you know, anything. I didn't want to use any intellectual modalities.
But can we define, for people that don't know, what was this?
Dark night of the soul, I think it may be different for everybody, but I think it's a destruction of literally who you are. Everything you have around you, it could be your job, your family, your health, everything around you is flattened to nothing. Everywhere you turn, it's desolate. There's nothing left. Your identity is gone. Your job is gone. Maybe your kids are gone. Maybe your relationship is gone. Maybe whatever, your house is gone. Could be everything around you that's gone. It's a dark night of the soul when you don't know where to turn.
A master would say, what an opportunity.
And that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And so my relationship with nature was the way that I gradually brought the defragmented pieces back together through water, through trees, through flowers, through air, through
Practically how? Like an invocation? Like you're asking them to come home, or how practically?
being in, going in, being next to it. For me, it's physical. It's always been a physical thing. So I would go every day into the forest, into the creeks, into the air, smelling the flowers every day to be able to build my, first of all, physical, because we know how nature heals the body. We know how water heals the body. We know how breath work heals the body. So it was actually the physical way of going out and bringing those elements to me and immersing myself in them. So staying in the water, being next to the water, singing in the water, singing to the water, humming to the water, thanking again, being grateful. Even in the dark night of the soul, when you say, what do I have to be grateful for? There's water, rushing water. Look at this planet Earth. So building my relationship up with like coming back to what is shamanism and how do you incorporate that into your life? It was building my relationship from the dark night of the soul, building my relationship with nature, and then gradually branching that out into social connections, but very limited, in my state, my field of social interaction is very limited because I choose very carefully who I want to be with and when I want to be with them and when it's good for me, not when I should go, not who I should be with. So yeah, the whole thing kind of together being what is shamanism and how did I come back from the dark night of the soul and what was the dark night of the soul is kind of all englobed in that.
What was bringing to your life? What did you had to renounce to? What was the step that the dark nights of the soul appeared in your life? Because it's always appearing with a lesson.
So what is the lesson?
What is the lesson? What did you need to overpass?
A lot of it is surrender, like let go of resistance and surrender. Because when you're in that state, if you keep holding on, you're just going to stay there. And that's just creating more resistance and creating more tension and staying in that state. So the only thing you can do is be in surrender. Like, I am, I breathe. There's nature. Like, what created the dark night of the soul and how did you get there? What did you lose and why did you lose it? If you surrender to what the dark night of soul, what you do not have, then you know what you should not have had. Do you see what I'm saying? And that catapults you into a whole new realm because I know that's not for me. And even though I love it, it's like being an addict to a bad relationship or being an addict to something that's not good for you. Mm-hmm. Not that it's not good for everybody else, just that it's not good for you. Mm-hmm. And so it catapults you into a new world. Mm-hmm. So what did I lose in the surrender? I didn't lose anything. I mean, I gained my same relationships with other things, but in a filled up way, a full way, a grateful way, mm-hmm. instead of assuming that that's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, whatever, no, it's like, wow, how could I have been so negligent in this and this and this and this. Surrender, that's what was. And when you surrender and you let go, you let the space open for all of your new adventures. So you're articulating the specific points. I'm saying, like, in a resonating way, this is what, like, the word for me was really, you have to learn to surrender. You have to learn to stop being so resistant.
Yeah. Resistance or in control. I observed this on my side. When it was really a dead end, it was that I was thinking that if I put more work or if I put more energy or I devote even more and I will break and I will put on the floor the last drop of my energy, then I will succeed and I will break this pattern of unsuccess or of pain or of everything else. And that, on the other hand, is that you don't need to do that.
No, because it also, like in shamanism, it also shows you what elements in your system were out of balance. You know, because when we do think that, I got to work more, that's too much fire. So how do we, you know, calm the fire down? Well, we need to be more stable and strong like water and balance out. Or if you go into burnout, it's too much air, like too much mind, too much going over and over again. How can we calm that? Grounding. So most of the solutions for people who have burnout, I don't know if you know this, but most people's solution is stop the work and go out into nature. I mean, apart from the psychiatrists who are going to give you medication, et cetera, but we're not in that realm right now. But most people who have burnout, their solution to becoming whole again, even if their amygdala is completely burned out, literally, is nature, grounding. So when you're practicing like a shamanic practitioner, we try to determine which element is out of balance and give a solution for its counterbalance so we can balance out the elements again.
Tell me more about the shamanic experience, because you are speaking, how did you arrive to it? Tell me more about the practice itself, because people are not really have being in touch with what is actually the practice.
So shamanic practice could be anything as simple as taking a drum and beating a drum at a certain speed. That can be a practice in itself, and that catapults you into another dimension. We were talking about that with sound therapy earlier. That's one of the therapies that we could use as a shamanic practice. Shamanic practice can be breath work. You can use breath work. Shamanic practice can be going into nature. Had a phobia of snakes, like a phobia of snakes, because I had a past life that I discovered myself. And in this past life, I was thrown into a pit of snakes. That's how I died. So I knew that because I had had dreams, etc. How did I overcome that? By shamanic practices. The universe has a way of bringing it to you. So not very long ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, the place where I always go to heal in the water, it was the time when the snakes were starting to be born and breed and shed, and they were everywhere, where I've seen a couple of snakes come up to me. They've actually come up to me, seen me, and gone back in my meditation practice when I'm out there. But never, I walked right into the water, and here I was face to face with a snake. And it's not the first time, but it's the first time that we both stopped and looked at each other. If I was any normal person, I would have ran out and started screaming, but I sat there and went, the water is calming my energy. The snake is looking at me. I'm looking at the snake. Okay, good vibes. The snakes turned away. I turned away, and we started studying each other for the whole day. So the whole day, there was 3 snakes, and the 3 snakes and I started swimming together at the end of the day. And in this process, I learned all about the snakes, not through ChatGPT, not through a book, because I was in the middle of nature on a couple of rocks. And they would come up, stick their head up, watch me, and I would watch them, and we would see how each of us worked. And so we would make a common territory where when they would swim away, I would go swim. When I would come back in, they would come back. And it was an amazing symbiotic day where I was practicing my renewed friendship with snakes after having been killed by snakes. I feel when you live in your authentic being, your past lives come and you make peace with them, with the past lives that need to be dealt with in this life. And for me, that's a shamanic practice in the sense where I just come into myself, into my heart. I go into my healing space, which is in the water, and that's what happened with the snakes, and that's what I had to deal with that day. Otherwise, I'd have to go home and just like go, I'm not going to be healed. But I sat there the whole day, and I actually was like, I need to swim. I need to be in that water. How am I going to do this? I need to make peace with these snakes. And in that, healed the fear of snakes. My friends, my peeps said, you're absolutely crazy. I said, no, it's not a question of being crazy. It's a question of starting to understand what nature is and how it can heal you. And I'm so blessed to have had that experience. So shamanic practice, going back to your question, what can people do for shamanic practice? Breath work, drum. There are other practices that we do, but we do in healing sessions. The Furba ceremony, which is a ceremony to destroy, it's destructive, to destroy certain things that people need to get out of their life. It akins to exorcism, but it's a more closed and contained process. I don't know if you've heard about that, the Furba healing.
No.
Yeah, okay. So that's a shamanic practice where we use daggers and images, and it's a ritual where we'll go through a very powerful ritual using deities to help us, a lot of them to help us get through and blast through challenges that people come to us for, difficulties, entities, without going into exorcism, which is another one. House cleaning is a shamanic practice. Not necessarily in the way that I will do a house cleaning, because when I do a house cleaning, I don't take out the vinegar and the lemon and clean. I'll do it in a different way. But you can just sit and take, for example, I'm going to use sage, but we're in the south of France, so the indigenous plant here to use would be rosemary. So you take rosemary leaves, crush them up, and use that as your smudge. So use smoke to clean out and change the ions in your home. That's a shamanic practice as well.
When you're doing the practice and when you are experiencing inside of the tribe, it's called tribe.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you travel together with the other
tribe?
participants? Yeah.
Okay, so we have our leader, our shaman leader, who takes us through the processes in the way that she was taught from her lineage. So it's a guided group thing. And then we take on, and then we will go as all of the Eagle tribe, we will go and we will practice that.
What is that process actually?
How to get there?
How to navigate?
Come into your heart, navigate it. Do you mean like the physical process of how do you get there?
Because it's quite similar to what is happening also in the set of a ritual, even if you are going with others in this, because it's creating an energy, a group energy, in which you are going on steps or on different places and so on. Is this quite the same thing that you can do as your own practice of astral traveling?
What is happening? I mean, you're flying off into another dimension, and you have a goal in mind. You know, when you go off in that dimension. So you have modalities to get into that state. Each one has their own modalities. And once you get into a certain frame of mind, then you know where you're going and you just take off. So I'm not really sure if that helps you with the vision, but astral traveling, yeah, it's, I'm not a specialist in that, even though I do astral travel. When I do astral travel, it's not regularly, but when I do, I have a specific goal in mind. I'm going to go somewhere. And when I go there, I remote view that place. And then I do what I have to do as far as ceremonies on that place. And then I come back. If I'm going to astral travel with a goal in mind, okay? Because sometimes you go off into astral traveling and you don't know why, and then you find yourself out in the middle of nowhere, and it's a bit scary at the beginning because you're all of a sudden projected into the astral realm. And you have different sounds, you have different images, you have different entities that come. I don't want to say entities in the bad way, but not in a dark way, but you see different things. And coming back is often is a harder way because sometimes you don't want to come back because you're in such a great space. But coming back, best if you're going to do something is to set a timer so that you have something tangible on earth to come back to, and you don't stay out in the astral traveling, in the astral realm, we could say.
While you were describing this, something passed my mind.
I'm glad I can allow you to travel.
Of course, you're keeping these feels since the beginning. When I was getting your number to get in contact with you, I saw the description, High Priestess.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
High Priestess is the accumulation of the studies of the shamanic practitioner. When we get to it, when we got to a certain point of our training, we became High Priestess or High Priest. And so that is where I'm standing in the shamanic realm. That's why I don't say I'm a shaman, because if I was a shaman, I would be way up there. So High Priestess is the accumulation of a certain amount of techniques that I know and I master, and I can freely, well, not freely, but give this out to others and help them heal through that. For me, in order to maintain the title, I need to practice every day, something every day to maintain the vibration. That's just for me. I don't say that for anybody else, but which is why every day when I wake up, the gratitude propulses me into the state of being a dignified human being that can be called High Priestess. High Priestess is a higher state of being, I think, or I don't want to say higher, that I'm higher than other people. It's just that I'm vibrating at a different level, and this vibration needs to be maintained. In order for it to be maintained, I need to find joy, bliss, gratitude in everything I do. Like I was saying, setting up the room, or when I'm teaching Pilates, the room is a different energy. It's a different vibe when people come in, because I find so much gratitude and bliss in what I do. And that's what makes the title High Priestess, and enables me as a human being to deserve to keep the title. It's kind of like your driver's license. I don't know here, but in Canada, every 5 years you have to renew your driver's license. Well, here I think it should be the same thing to keep the title of High Priestess. That, okay, she's not vibrating, get her down. She's a low priestess. I don't even know if that exists. But do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
Is that the more I go and the more I delve into the practices that I've learned and the more I apply them, the deeper the vibration gets. And then, then other venues open up. So for example, right now, what you put on before you came here, the smell, it just opened up a whole field. And right now that is pulling me strongly into, I don't know if you know about the discipline called the Miraphors. Miraphors?
No.
Okay, so those are the high priestesses of Egypt and of the time of the Essenes. And they use fragrances and natural essential oils to induce different states of consciousness. And so that's the next step, because I feel that I can handle that now. That's deep. Like we're going deep now into deep ancestral techniques of olfactory development. And how can I incorporate that into my healing process as well? So when people come, they will get another dimension opening up. And if I haven't got them with Reiki or energy healing or sound therapy or drums or whatever it is that I do in my sessions, the olfactory sense development may help them heal as well. So
And what is the drive in the end? It's like a sort of a mission to help people here. It's sort of a personal endeavor into discovering the more facets of who you are. What is the drive?
totally both.
You are also in a sort of duty of serving humanity.
The original human being in this body, the goal was teacher and becoming healer, becoming healed to become healer, and eventually healer to teach people to heal themselves. So it's all like it's a cyclic thing, as everything in life, this cyclic way of being. So both of what you said, completely.
You are curious of what is next, because I feel that you're
Totally.
just saying that you are on an edge when you're feeling that a new chapter is starting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, completely. There is the healing adventure, or the as a healer is opening up, and yeah, the combination with that and the teacher is starting to formulate something, like shedding some old skin, which is maybe part of that snake process as well. Because the first thing I saw when I was in the snake area was there's a snake skin floating in the water. And I was like, what the heck is that? And what does that mean? And why is it touching my foot? Yeah, there is a definite curiosity to how can I keep healing myself, and in order to better heal others and teach them that they can do it too. I always say to people, what I do to you is maybe magic for you, but you can also do it yourself. Just apply this breath work, okay? And then we'll record the session and I'll give them the breath work, and they'll go with the breath work and oh, wow, my life has changed. It's just breath.
Absolutely magnificent, and I wish you to achieve things that you never dreamt of, because I think this is the magic in life. When we are thinking that we are going to new endeavors or to new challenges, and what waits at the end of it, it's much bigger or so different from what we have imagined.
Yeah, it's much bigger, definitely. I don't know if it's what we imagined. It's beyond. It's so beyond what we can imagine, right?
So, my dear,
Yes.
at this moment in your life, what is the one message that the world needs to hear from you?
Practice gratitude. Practice gratitude. With all of the practices that I do, that always comes down to practice gratitude, because that brings love and that brings you to a higher vibration. And I think in our, like the world that we're evolving in, it's a common thing that we do. But like I was saying, 90% of people can't do lotus. They can't understand what gratitude is either. So if we remain in gratitude, that will radiate out so that the others feel it and they say, hey, what's that? So practice gratitude.
Thank you so much for this discussion.
With pleasure.
It was an amazing pleasure.
Yes, it was really nice to talk to you too. Thank you so much for inviting me. I didn't think I had anything to say.
I was enjoying so much your presence.
Thank you.
And your joy.
Likewise.
And yes, your joy that is flourishing from peace, which is
Wow.
beautiful.
Thank you. You created an amazing space for this, so thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to open up my peace and love into your humble abode. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. As for the rest of you, I hope you liked today's episode, and let's continue the discussion below with comments and even sharing this episode to people that maybe needs to hear this information. And until next time, don't forget, take care of yourself.